and a shining heat radiated right through him as his lungs contracted painfully. A drop of wet fell onto the skin at the base of his throat, and then another fell on the torn grooves of skin on his face. The drops of warm liquid trickled over his flesh, stinging his skin, and a moan escaped his chest. He wanted to see her, to feel her touch on him again. He tried to reach for her, but it was too much of a struggle. His arms wouldn't listen to his commands, and his eyelids sank with the effort, his eyeballs swimming in his head as muffled voices and footsteps thudded around him. He was adrift once more. Gone.
1. Justine. 2 years later.
"There is your husband, madam."
The doctor's lips settled in a firm line. Justine fought the wave of nausea rising in her throat, holding her breath against the stench of sickness and desolation in this large hospital room full of forgotten patients. Her gaze followed his outstretched hand, pointing towards one of the many ill, diseased and infirm, lying in unclean beds. Her heart skipped a beat at the sight of him. Straggly black hair and a beard made him a fierce-looking creature, even though he was incapacitated in a hospital bed. Mumbling to himself quietly like a helpless child, his eyes glazed. His thin frame lay twisted on the dirty linens, his bearded face gaunt, his eyes seeing something far from reality, his mind engaged in the clouds. This was Brandon Trahan, Baron of Graven. He was not the Brandon she remembered. That Brandon was a fine young gentleman, bursting with vitality and searing good looks. This was a scarred shell of a man, clinging to a half-life, not the dashing older step-cousin who'd once wiped her tears and lied to their nanny on her behalf when she'd fallen and ripped yet another hole in her dress. Nor was he the energetic creature who roared with laughter as he would chase her and her stepsister like a tiger through the great hall of Wolfsgate until they could no longer breathe nor laugh any harder. Justine levelled her eyes at the doctor. "We are taking him home." His eyes bulged, his mouth fell open.
"Are you quite sure, ma'am?"
"Quite." Justine squared her shoulders and cast him a quick, cool glance. Disdain, impatience, irritation. The way a noblewoman would respond to an insolent remark. She'd practiced for this moment. Justine raised an eyebrow at the medico in his old powdered wig. "I have made all the necessary arrangements. There is a doctor waiting." The doctor's eyes pinched together.
"I mean no disrespect, ma'am, but I have my instructions from his uncle."
"I've come here with my uncle on several occasions to see my husband."
"Yes, my lady, I remember."
The doctor frowned at them both.
"This is most irregular."
Justine tilted her head at him, eyes narrowing. "My coach is waiting." She snapped the words. Lady Graven would tolerate no denial. Davidson, the beefy estate manager who had accompanied Justine on this mad quest to London, leaned forward at her side and glowered at the man. The doctor heaved a sigh.
"As you wish."
The doctor motioned to 2 of his lackeys to unchain the patient from his bed and escort him out to his wife's hired coach. Davidson surged ahead of her to assist the men with their charge, who now groaned and grunted at the sudden sharp movements his body was being forced to make. Brandon twisted and shrugged away at the contact forced upon him.
"You will have to sign for him, Lady Graven."
The doctor directed her to his office. Justine's chest stiffened at the sound of the title. She desperately needed fresh air, itched to get out of this building as soon as possible. However, the thought that Brandon had languished here for 2 long years and would finally be free fueled her restraint. The doctor placed a document in front of her. She quickly perused the discharge form with a show of cool irritation and signed her name where he indicated. Dropping the quill on his desk, she swept out of the room. Davidson reached into the coach and grabbed one of the blankets they had brought, wrapping his young master with it. He shook his head as he took in the young man's haunted eyes and haggard face. The men shoved Brandon into the carriage, and he howled softly, curling himself up into the corner.